If you've ever stood in the garden supply aisle staring at pricey compost activator bottles, wondering whether you really need them, you're not alone. Nearly every gardener reaches that moment, dreaming of fast, rich compost but not loving the idea of paying for lab-formulated boosters. I used to feel the same way. Composting felt slow, unpredictable, and frustrating, and like many gardeners, I assumed the only way to speed things up was to buy a fancy activator. But, the truth. You don't need store-bought compost activators. Mother Nature already equipped us with a far simpler, cheaper, and shockingly powerful solution, one you probably have in your kitchen right now: molasses. Molasses is one of the best compost accelerators on the planet. It feeds microbes, ramps up heat, speeds decomposition, and transforms an ordinary pile into black gold. Today, I want to share exactly how it works, why it's better than commercial activators, and how you can start using it tonight. This isn't theory, and it definitely isn't fluff. This is the Soilpower method: real gardening, real microbes, real results. Molasses is pure microbial fuel. That deep brown syrup isn't just sugar, it's sugar wrapped in minerals like calcium, magnesium, iron, and potassium. When poured into compost, those sugars feed bacteria, fungi, and actinomycetes. In return, they multiply at high speed, generating heat and breaking down plant material faster. Most commercial activators are basically concentrated microbial food. And what is the main base ingredient in many of them? Sugar or carbohydrate blends. When you activate microbes with molasses, you're doing the same thing, without the price tag, preservatives, or chemicals. Where store-bought activators cost $10 to $40 per container, a jar of molasses or cane sugar syrup, jaggery, or honey costs a tiny fraction and lasts weeks or months. When I first added molasses to a compost pile 6 years ago, the change was jaw-dropping. Within 24 hours, the compost temperature jumped from cool and stagnant to 62 degrees Celsius or 144 degrees Fahrenheit, and the pile went from odorless to that warm, earthy smell rich compost makes when it's truly alive. And that's what convinced me: microbes don't need magic, they need food. When microbes eat sugar, they multiply. It's that simple. One becomes hundreds, hundreds become millions. Suddenly the whole compost pile becomes a living engine. In microbiology, this is called rapid metabolic stimulation. In gardening terms, we just call it, wow, that pile is cooking. Here's what molasses triggers inside your compost. It jumps the temperature fast. The microbial activity releases heat and, that heat breaks down tough carbon materials like straw, leaves, or cardboard. It prevents the compost from going anaerobic. Microbes are happiest when air and food come together. Molasses boosts aerobic populations that crowd out the foul-smelling anaerobic bacteria. It increases humus formation. Molasses doesn't just decay waste faster. It helps structure strong, stable humus that supports soil biology for years. It eliminates that slow, cold compost phase. Many gardeners quit composting because nothing seems to happen. Molasses solves that. Suddenly the compost turns into a warm, breathing system. And the best part? It works with hot piles, cold piles, tumblers, worm farms, static heaps, trench composting, and bokashi. Molasses isn't a hack, it's a universal fuel. The method is refreshingly simple, but the details matter. Once your compost pile is built, layers of carbon and nitrogen, mixed reasonably well, add molasses using this formula. Mix 2 tablespoons of molasses per 4 liters, or 1 gallon of water. Stir until dissolved, then pour this evenly through the pile. For a medium-sized heap, repeat every 2 to 3 weeks. For a large pile, repeat weekly, especially during the active heating phase. And, if you're working with a slow winter pile, molasses gives it the strength to keep going. You'll know it's working when you feel heat rising from the pile just by placing your hand over it. Sometimes it gets so hot you'll see steam in the cool morning air. If your compost is packed with dry leaves or sawdust, molasses is even more valuable. Pure carbon needs nitrogen, but it also needs energy, and molasses provides it directly. After adding molasses, always turn or fork the heap for air. Molasses without oxygen can turn the pile sour. With air, it becomes rocket fuel. Commercial compost activators often sound scientific: microbial inoculant, enzyme enhancer, biological accelerator, but behind the marketing, most products rely on a simple truth: compost microbes need food. If your pile is built correctly, carbon, nitrogen, moisture, and oxygen, you already have all the organisms you need, so why pay for bacteria in a bottle? You're not missing microbes, you're missing momentum. Molasses gives your existing microbial community everything it needs to explode in number and activity. Most activators only add tiny doses of colony-forming units. Molasses takes your entire native population and, well, sets it on fire. It doesn't just boost decomposition, it boosts diversity. Different microbes respond differently to sugars, minerals, moisture, and heat. Molasses offers all four. Molasses doesn't expire quickly. Activators do. Microbes die in the bottle. Molasses doesn't care if it sits 6 months on your shelf. It will be ready every time you need it. And here's something I love most. Molasses leaves no chemical footprint, no artificial growth promoters, no synthetic enzymes, no residues, just nature's own power. In a world full of products trying to replace natural systems, molasses works because it supports them. If you've ever dug into compost that looks fine on top but still chunky and recognizable inside, that's slow decomposition. The material never reached full heat and microbial density. Activated compost, the kind molasses helps create, looks different. It becomes darker faster, crumbly, sweet-smelling, loose, airy, and rich. The texture alone tells you it's biologically alive. You know, plants respond to activated compost almost instantly. Leaves turn glossy, soil structure transforms, water retention improves, and worms start to multiply. When we feed microbes, microbes feed plants. It's really that simple. Activated compost carries higher nutrient availability because it breaks organic matter into a biologically digestible form. So that means you're not just producing compost, you're producing soil energy. Gardeners often ask why sugar works so well. The answer is microbiology. Molasses supplies simple carbohydrates that microbes convert into ATP, the energy currency of life. With more ATP, they metabolize faster, multiply faster, and work faster. The minerals in molasses also function as microbial cofactors. They strengthen cell walls, enzyme function, and metabolic stability. So, this process actually creates heat. Yeah, that's another key reason decomposition speeds up. Heat in turn breaks down lignin, which are those tough woody fibers you find in plant materials. And when lignin breaks, carbon becomes accessible. Now, with carbon more accessible, you get even more biological transformation happening, and honestly, this is exactly how those humble garden scraps turn into dark, nutrient-rich humus. You really don't need a degree in soil science to compost, but hey, it does help to know that sugar, in just the right spot, acts like gasoline. Unsulfured blackstrap molasses offers the highest mineral content and, the best microbial response, but honestly, any molasses works, sugarcane syrup works, jaggery works, even leftover honey or syrup works. Use what you have, that's the Soilpower way. Too much molasses can smother oxygen and encourage anaerobic microbes. A sticky pile is, well, a suffocating pile. As long as you dilute it in water and turn the compost afterward, you're golden. If your pile ever starts to smell sour, it needs air, not less molasses. Every gardener who tries molasses becomes a believer. I've watched strangers turn into friends after seeing their compost transform. Piles that sat still for months came alive in days. Cold piles turned hot, slow piles turned active, frustrated gardeners turned confident. Compost activators are not bad products, they just aren't necessary. Everything we need is already growing, breathing, and multiplying beneath our feet. And if we learn to feed it right, we grow more than compost, we grow soil. Your compost pile doesn't care about brand names. It doesn't need shiny labels or expensive ingredients. What it needs is simple energy, moisture, and oxygen. Molasses gives you that at a fraction of the cost and, honestly, with 10 times the satisfaction. So, next time someone tells you compost activators are the secret to success, just smile kindly and keep your money. Your kitchen already holds the magic. Try this method. See your compost change, feel the heat rise, smell the life in the pile, and hey, when harvest season comes, you'll feel it in your soil and see it in your plants. If this inspired you, if you learned something new, or if you want more real practical soil wisdom, subscribe to Soilpower. Share this article with a fellow gardener who deserves better results without spending more money. Let's grow stronger soil together.